Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. What a day in front of us. I was just listening to the final stump speeches by Hillary and Donald Trump. Let's see how things pan out. Hillary is a hot favorite going into this day, and it will really be a tremendous upset if Trump pulls something off. At the moment, I've got to say that it looks all Hillary. Pete D'Souza with a fantastic photograph of President Obama working in the Oval Office late in the winter season. And it is a great loss, I think, because I think President Obama proved a tremendous leader, not only of America, but of the world. I did an interview last Friday with the rugby world champion, David Campese. Take a look if you get a chance. There's so many things to say, very powerfully articulated, that everything's all about passion. I couldn't agree with it more. Macro thoughts: Greenspan sees bond yields climbing as high as 5%. This is in the US, and this was the subject of my piece a while ago, Mirrors on the Ceiling, the Pink Champagne on Ice. And I said, what is clear is that we are at the fag end of this party. Put up a picture of Hotel California by the Eagles. That was some of the lyrics I used in my piece, Mirrors on the Ceiling, the Pink Champagne on Ice. And she said, we are all just prisoners here of our own device. Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. I had to find the passage back to the place I was before. Relax, said the nightman. We are programmed to recede. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. So yes, I'd agree with Greenspan. I think we're going to see a huge move in bond yields. OPEC's cartel days are over. This is Yahoo Finance. And I wrote about this in 2014 and in 2015 when I said OPEC has conceded its swing producer role to the US, who essentially and with subtlety tipped the crude oil market into surplus. This was a while back via shale oil production. Without an agreement to make real substantial cuts, OPEC's credibility will be in tatters and the oil bears will run riot. The VIX Fear Index of US stock market volatility snapped a record run of 9 daily rises to post its biggest fall since June. That was yesterday. Home thoughts: I like this photograph from Truth Slinger. Lit paths guiding me home. One of the oldest streets in Nairobi, Kenyatta Avenue from above. The essential difference between the culture of the past and the entertainment of today is that the products of the former sought to transcend a mere present time, to endure, to stay alive for future generations, while the products of the latter are made to be consumed instantly and disappear like cake or popcorn. Thought for the day is from Dame Daphne Sheldrake. Do read the message, it's so powerful, isn't it? And let me leave you with one other photograph. A Sikh devotee bathes in the holy Sarovar on occasion of Bandi Chor Divas's Diwali at the Golden Temple in Amritsar. By Nanny World. Political reflections: it is finally election day, and Holger asks, will we be preserving the political establishment or blowing it up? And that's a legitimate question because a lot of political establishments have been blown up of late. Clinton won the first official presidential election vote, and that was the first release. 538, latest polls only forecast gives Clinton a 71% chance to win the presidency. But I see on the prediction markets, she's higher than that. She's at 78 to 82, so she's around 80. That's out of 100. So if you're buying 80, you're going to get 100 if she wins. Trump, you're buying 22, you're going to get 100 if he wins. So you can see the disparity in odds. President a bit choked up as he remembers his own rise in 2008. You gave me, a skinny guy with a funny name, a chance. He's shown Africa a higher path, and I think he's done this generally. That's been his politics. He's always lifted people's heads up and said, look where you can go. That was comments about President Obama made by myself. I voted for Hillary Clinton because I'm absolutely confident that when she is president, this country will be in good hands. That's again POTUS. This chart from Holger shows why a Trump election could unsettle markets. Despite tight polls, markets pricing in an 80% chance for Clinton. In this photograph, Hillary Clinton is greeting supporters during a campaign rally at the Cleveland Public Auditorium on November the 6th in Cleveland, Ohio. So it's an exciting moment. It looks on balance that Hillary hasn't sewn up, but so did Brexit, so did Remain, because if they had it sewn up as well. So proof will be in the pudding. We're going to see it very, very soon. We've already seen some big moves in the markets, but let's get to that momentarily. A Chinese premier has arrived in Russia for official visit. This is, again, the mistake I felt the US made, which was to push Russia and China together. A ruling by China's National People's Congress has effectively barred 2 elected Hong Kong pro-independence politicians from taking office. The move by Beijing is considered Beijing's most direct intervention in the territory's legal and political system since Britain handed over the colony to China in 1997. Beijing's move came after Yao Wei-ching, 25, and Bajie Long, 30, pledged allegiance to the Hong Kong nation and displayed a banner declaring Hong Kong is not China during a swearing-in ceremony for the city's Legislative Council in October. And then look at this photograph of police standing guard during a standoff with demonstrators amid ongoing protests in Hong Kong. The UK is preparing legislation to trigger Brexit. I don't think there's any way back. That's a fact. The British government is preparing legislation to trigger the procedure to leave the EU. Sky News reported on Monday, despite Prime Minister Theresa May saying she is confident of overturning a court decision that may delay Brexit. Let's move on to the currency markets. The euro is at 110.44, dollar index 97.76, dollar yen 104.36, Swiss franc 0.9748, the pound 123.99, the Aussie is at 0.7703, Indian rupee 66.705, South Korean won 1134.60, the real 320.25. Higher beta currencies have been firming up. Egyptian pound 16.878, 8.88 was the price for eternity, you'll remember. South African rand 13.4121. Dollar index, let me put up a 1-year chart. We've sort of retreated from that 100 level that we were targeting, but a lot will depend on what happens here. Gold last trading at 1282.81, 1250 if Hillary Clinton wins, 1400 if Trump wins. Crude oil, US crude oil pops above $45, $45.25. A little bit of stabilization returning after an enormous sell-off over the previous 2 weeks, but I expect us to fall off some more. This is OPEC's dream, coking coal up 270% year to date, with benchmark approaching $300 a ton. In January it was just $80. Nickel prices, have a look at this chart. This is again David Inglis. Iron ore, have a look at this chart again from David Inglis. What you see is a stupendous rally in industrial metals. It really is extraordinary. The Mexican peso, which has always been inversely correlated to Trump. I'll put up a 1-year chart, getting a bit of a recovery now. India is preparing to list about £600 million millions of so-called masala bonds in London. Masala bonds are bonds denominated in Indian rupees, but traded and sold overseas. Let's move on to Africa. Congo's president tightens grip on power as former allies squeeze him out. The bloody efforts of the DRC's longtime president to retain power have plunged the country further into violent crisis and risk undoing the fragile stability of one of the world's most mineral-rich economies. Joseph Kabila, once hailed as the deft negotiator who ended Africa's deadliest war, in recent months has cancelled elections slated for November and insisted the government needs more preparation time. More than 50 people were killed in a 2-day government crackdown in September, the UN said. A poll published on Tuesday by Congo Research Group indicates that some 81% of Congolese are opposed to amending the constitution to allow Mr. Kabila to extend his term. He's fighting a tide that's moving against him. The future of this country of 77 million people rests on which version of Mr. Kabila emerges from the standoff, the peacemaker or the tyrant who may sink his country back into conflict. Congo is drifting toward a violent path, but the danger can be avoided. This is Thomas Perelli, the US Special Envoy to the Great Lakes region, which also includes Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda. Born and raised in a rebel camp in Congo's forested eastern gold and tin heartlands, where his father Laurent Kabila was leading a guerrilla war against strongman Mobutu Sese Seko, Mr. Kabila rose through rebel ranks. He became president at the age of 29 after his father was assassinated in 2001. Saying investors returned to the country, which holds huge reserves of copper, gold, cobalt, and coltan. But then subsequently, his ruling coalition has splintered, costing him several hitherto allied parties and influential figures, including Moise Katumbi, Vital Kamarhe, head of the Union for the Congolese National Party. The majority of the political parties have stayed away from talks to put in place a transitional government. President Kabila is letting down the Congolese people and the international community, said Sasha Lezhnev. Critics accuse Mr. Kabila of plotting to prolong his time in power and eventually change Congo's constitution to allow him to stand for a third term. His supporters denied the allegation. By using force to silence opponents, Mr. Kabila, who routinely tours the countryside with columns of machine gun-toting guards, has become the latest symbol of a typical African strongman. Recent months, heads of state in neighboring Republic of Congo, Rwanda and Burundi have changed laws to extend their mandates. Perello says the trend must not be encouraged to continue. Look, I'm not sure Kabila can keep on repressing without the pressure cooker blowing. And he's managed to stay below that threshold I described, which you'd only discover at the throes of the event. How long he can stay below that with his popularity figures so low is a mystery. Zambia reports Angola is seeking the smooth exit for Kabila. Let me put up a photograph of Kinshasa that Lina Pembe posted. The Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries, which represents most large industries in the country, said the government should adopt the South African rand as its reference currency instead of the US dollar. I like this photograph of President Jacob Zuma at Mahulana Primary School in Tembisa as part of the government-wide Imbizo Focus Week. African pension funds seek central bank approval to increase Barclays Africa's stake. Africa's biggest pension fund, Public Investment Corporation, has sought the approval from South Africa's central bank to raise its stake in Barclays Africa. Two sources with direct knowledge of the matter have said. Barclays Africa's parent, Barclays plc, wants to reduce its holding to below 20%, which would make it an equity investment rather than a subsidiary. The plan is part of a broader sale by the British Bank of its African assets as it shifts to focus on the United States and Britain. PIC is the second biggest shareholder in Barclays Africa with a holding of about 7%, could buy at least an additional 31% stake, sources indicated. PIC has always looked at Barclays PLC's retreat as an opportunity to create a black-owned bank, but there aren't many people with deep pockets to make that happen. But PIC on its own can buy to a level where Barclays will be able to deconsolidate it and has approached the Reserve Bank for ways to go about it. South African all shares back above 50,000 again, but it's minus 0.77% this year. Dollar Rand, Gordon is winning, that's why the Rand is stronger, 13.4171. Saudi Aramco has informed Egypt that it will be halting shipments of petroleum products to Egypt until further notice. That's an interesting development. Since the pound's peg of 8.8 to the dollar was abandoned on Thursday, the currency has tumbled to near 17. Official data is not available, but bankers say privately they believe Egyptian banks need several $1 billion to fill their existing commitments. In addition, unmet commercial demand for dollars is estimated at around $8 to $10 billion. Regional investment bank Arkan Capital said the devaluation could bring $12 billion of foreign money into Egypt's bond market and $4.5 billion into equities, but it estimated this might take a year. President al-Sisi has urged Egyptians not to protest and warned there will be no going back on economic reforms, whatever the pain. We're now calling it Black Thursday. This is a dangerous warning. Sisi's popularity is declining. It's no doubt because, of course, the street is going to get squeezed. Most of all, the Egyptian EGX 30 is up 14.63% this year. A lot of that is because of the deval. Nigeria all share down 6.13% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index minus 14.46% this year. 11 AAU Oromo students have been charged for staging a peaceful protest in front of the US Embassy in Addis and sentenced to 6 months. I wrote about this on the 17th of October when I said Ethiopia's reputation is being shattered by political tensions. I like this photograph of Somali fishermen carrying a fish from their vessels on the shores of the Indian Ocean on Lido Beach in Mogadishu. Oman is planning farms in Africa to cut its dependence on imported food, looking at Sudan and Tanzania. Kenya's earnings from horticulture exports rose 20% to 77.81 billion shillings the first 9 months of this year from a year earlier. That's a good result, especially given that so much of it goes to the UK. Kenya Airways is now plus 42.85% this year. It's been a miraculous rally since Michael Joseph was essentially brought in as chairman. Nation Media Group, however, dropped 1% to close at a 2016 low of 99. And that's minus 47.1% year to date. I spoke of it as being a Schumpeter moment in the media industry just as much as it is in the banking industry. My piece over the weekend was about Safaricom. I said Bob is right, Kenya needs 5 Safaricoms. I was going through how he's presided over a golden age for shareholders. The total return for shareholders during his tenure clocks 711%. That return surely ranks in the top percentile worldwide. Safaricom is up 37.66% in 2016. Nairobi all shares down 2.88% this year, so you can see the comparison between the all share and Safaricom. NSE 20 is down 19.61% this year. Kenyan tycoon on the spot after Uganda bank collapse. Prime Bank Chairman Rasik Kantari has found himself in the eye of a storm after Ugandan authorities placed Crane Bank in receivership over irregular lending practices. Mr. Kantari is a significant shareholder at Prime Bank, is a long-serving director and the second largest shareholder in Crane Bank with a 47.32% stake. Ugandan authorities placed Crane Bank in receivership in October this year. The continuation of Crane Bank's activities in its current form is detrimental to the interests of its depositors. Mr. Cantaria owns his Crane Bank stake through an investment vehicle dubbed White Sapphire Limited and has served on the Ugandan Lenders Board for more than a decade. Crane Bank's volume of non-performing loans and advances stood at 4.15 billion shillings, accounting for a quarter of Uganda's banking sector's bad loans. Mr. Cantaria chairs the boards of multiple firms, including Tausi Assurance, Leisure Lodge, Beach and Golf Resort, is a director in First Merchant Bank of Malawi, where Prime Bank directly controls 11.24% and a further 11.24% through Prime Capital Holdings. He has other holdings in Malawi as well. Prime Bank is a professionally run financial institution regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya. We are fully compliant and strictly follow the prudential guidelines laid down by the CBK. It is ranked 15th in size out of Kenya's 40 operational banks. Just to recap on the stock market, both indices were down yesterday. Safaricom eased 1.18% to close at 21, but as I said, corrections will be shallow, resume its bull run imminently. Kenya Airways rallied 2.189% to close at a fresh 2016 high of 7, up 42.85%. In 2016, Business Daily reported that the chairman, Michael Joseph, is set to visit the KLM CEO within 2 weeks to renegotiate a number of agreements. Mr. Joseph has a legacy to protect, and his early moves signal he knows exactly what needs to be done, hence the recent surge in the share price. Nation media, as I said, slap bang in the middle of its Schumpeter moment, fell 1% to close at 99, down 47.1% this year. Banks saw some broad-based activity. The only bank that's up this year is Standard Chartered BL, the Standard Chartered Kenya, and it's delivered a positive return, eased 105%. It's up 18.41% on a total return basis. EABL got hit by a real big PR hullabaloo around Johnny Walker. If you're interested in knowing that, please get in touch. Eased 1.43%. Couldn't swim against that tide. Total Kenya up 3.15% to close at 18. So let's see what happens in the States. It's a big day indeed.